Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this webinar about psychometric assessment. So I'm excited to share all the information with you. So let me introduce the company first. I'm talking on behalf of PTES Consulting. We are psychologists and organizational development specialists, and we specialize in the field of psychometric assessment. So what I want to share with you this morning, I would just like to give you a little bit of a background and a context to psychometric assessment. I want to talk about the benefits of psychological assessment in the corporate environment. I want to briefly touch on the statistics on the validity and the reliability of psychometric assessment. I just want to look at the process of psychometric assessment within any company, should you proceed with something like this. And then also the background to the Health Professions Council of South Africa's, the guidelines and the ethical principles. We will look at professionalism, confidentiality, and then also the type of assessment batteries that you can use on different levels within any company. And I think then the most interesting part would be the example of a report. I think that is the thing that a lot of people would like to be interested in. So, and just to let you know, you are welcome to share your questions here on the question board with me, but we're going to address it at the end of the session, just so that we run through everything nicely, and then we will get back to you. All right. So my name is Celia Denton, and I'm the owner of PTS Consulting, and I'm also an industrial psychologist. And we've been in business for more than 15 years. So PTES stands for Psychometric Testing and Evaluation Services, and we started as a practice. And then it became really, really big, and we incorporated the whole HR function within there. So therefore, we made it a consulting firm. So it went from a practice to a consulting firm. All right, so I'm actually excited to give you a little bit of background to psychometric assessment and why we do it. I think the statistics is the part that most business owners and also HR people would be very interested in to see. So this is the area where we can help. So of course, talent fit has become a crucial component for business success. Hiring or developing the wrong people can be detrimental to your business. So this is what we see every day when we've got clients contacting us. They contact us because they're at the point where they are just not in the place anymore where they can afford wrong hires or people with a bad attitude or people that just don't work out. It is too costly. So there is a growing body of evidence indicating that the use of psychometric testing for selection purposes has actually increased quite significantly. In South Africa, just the statistics in South Africa currently, if we look at why people are doing psychometric assessment is, so the cost of a bad hire in South Africa is estimated at about 5 times the annual salary of an employee. The biggest problem is a lot of these costs we can't see. It's hidden costs. The second part that I've got here is 36% of organizations state that a bad hire negatively impacts employee engagement and culture. So these are one of the things that's even more impossible to just clearly see. So the costs that you lose because of the attitude and the vibe, or even just the subtle influences, is quite enormous. And then my last point here is there was about 10 billion rand lost in terms of productivity costs due to labor unrest in South Africa in 2014 alone. Some of these numbers have actually increased recently. All right, so the benefits of psychometric assessment within the workplace. So firstly, psychometric assessment is a scientific and a predictive method of assessing talent fit. All the assessments are registered with the Health Professions Council. They are all listed as a psychometric assessment. So therefore also we have the quality of it being a scientific as well as a predictive method of assessing talent fit. It is not a crystal ball, which means that you won't be able to see or to cut out every single bad apple, but we can predict up to a very high percentage what it is that you're going to get. So the validity here is between 60 and 80%. That is the higher validity rate that you will have in your organization. So using a combination of assessments will definitely make your validity rate much, much higher. Secondly, here, it allows for fair discrimination based upon the job requirements. So we are allowed to discriminate based on the job requirements for the specific position. A third benefit, it saves time and costs during the selection process. So this is probably the biggest reason why people join us, is because of the costs involved when you have the wrong person or a wrong dynamic within a team. So definitely a very big time and savings cost. The last point here, this enables a seamless integration of the talent processes across the employee life cycle. So it's important to note, you don't have to do psychometric assessment in isolation. You do psychometric assessment to introduce the person into the organization. You already know who they are, what to expect. What you can do from here on forward is use the same psychometric assessment for personal development, for possible succession planning, but also for career planning and career development and possible talent retention. So your information that you have doesn't have to stop here at the first point when you assessed for selection. You can use that same results throughout to guide yourself as well as the candidate. So this will feed the whole talent management process. I'm actually very eager to share the next graph with you. So this is the statistics on the validity and reliability of a psychometric assessment. So firstly, you would probably want to ask me, what will be the benefit for me? Where will be my cost saving? What's going to be different? So this is a list of techniques that we use before we employ someone. So that will accompany the interview process. So, and this is a correlation on job performance. So this will be linking to job performance. So let's start right at the bottom here. So graphology is something that is absolutely, it's got no relation to employment. And graphology is the science on handwriting. So handwriting could be good with solving a murder or in a case like that, but not for recruitment and employment. Other than that, graphology is actually quite reliable, but not for selection and recruitment purposes. Years of education, interests, even years of job experience does not have a lot of predictive validity to whether the person is going to perform very well. Then we get to an unstructured interview. So an unstructured interview is your typical interview where you just ask random questions. What is your good points? What is your bad points? What can you contribute to the company? It is a literally as you go questionnaire. Most people follow this method of interviews. This has got extremely low reliable and validity in your recruitment process. So I want to jump from unstructured interviews right to the top here where it says structured interviews. So there is two ways that you can do an interview. The one is unstructured, the one is very structured. The structured one is also called a competency-based interview, and that one is planned, it's organized. You have a plan and a focus. Please keep an eye out on your emails for the next webinar on competency-based interviews. We will actually teach you how to develop your own and apply it. It's got very high validity. We're almost on 50% higher, more than 50% higher. So just a random interview with random questions has got very low predictive validity. Then also we get to your reference checks. So we always recommend reference checks, but in combination with psychometric assessment. So just to have that glimpse about the person, what they've done in their past, their history, their performance history, it's not on its own, it is not reliable, but together with ability test, personality test, even a competency-based interview, any background information, it will work. But always be careful of a reference. It is actually, in a sense, very subjective, but it is good to just have that background knowledge. So we would always recommend it. Biodata is just some more information about the person's background, what the person has done in the past. It's all just question information. So it's nothing reliable or valid, like, for example, a qualification check. It's not as reliable as that. So it's good to know the background, but once again, not in isolation. An assessment center it can be a very nice exercise when you combine it with psychometric assessment. So an assessment center would be leaderless group discussions. It would be one-on-one interviews with a panel. It can be a very interesting, very, very nice exercise, but you want to combine it with some form of a psychometric assessment as well as a competency-based interview. So you can see that the validity is already climbing a little bit. So an assessment center is, especially for large groups, it works very, very well. Personality questionnaires does lie here on its own a little bit lower, because you never want to use any psychometric assessment alone in isolation. You want to combine it with other competency assessments. That's why on its own, it's only going to give you a little bit more than 40% reliability. But together, like if you look at right at the top here, ability test and personality tests combined, it's got the highest level of validity. So on its own, it's still okay, but not good enough for you. Then a job knowledge test is also usually quite helpful. But once again, you want to combine it with something a little bit more scientific. But a job knowledge test is fantastic, but it's not going to give you the dynamics in terms of, can the person fit in with the organization or the team? Is the culture right? Is the fit right? Will the person fit in? So the job knowledge test will give you that. It's going to tell you whether the person has got knowledge about the job. And then we climb a little bit higher. We go back to the structured interview. So you can see that a structured interview has actually pretty much a lot of significance that it can add. So a structured interview done correctly in the right way, measuring the correct competencies, will add a lot of value. Ability test on its own, it's a little bit higher than the personality questionnaire that we were talking about just now, but still combined, much, much, much better. So then also we have work sample tests. So this is sort of the same as a job knowledge test, but a little bit of more detail. It is always good to test whether a person can do something very much job related, but you do want to combine it again with your personality and ability test. Even if you look at an ability test with a structured interview, it's also got a lot of reliability. But of course, what's going to be the best for you is an ability assessment, a personality assessment, a structured interview, or as we say, a competency-based interview, even together with some references and a little bit of the bio data will give you a very, very good idea of the person that you're going to measure. So you can see that when you get to this stage, you must have a thorough process. Don't rely on just one thing. It's going to help you, but you can have it all. You don't have to just settle for one instrument or tool to get you to your answer. All right, I briefly want to touch on a typical process for when we do psychometric assessment. So nowadays, we are actually very fortunate to have almost all assessments done online. So the process can be very, very easy, streamlined. Of course, the face-to-face assessment is still possible. That is still being done. But if you have some of these remote candidates maybe spread all over, and you are usually there is a time hurry. So everything can be done online. So usually the inquiry is logged by the client. Then one would do a job and a competency review to see what type of selection of test batteries would you want, what would be suitable. So you would have management level assessments, or you could have very senior exec, or you can have very lower entry level assessments. So you want to look at the competencies that it is that you need for your specific job, and the competencies will be the one who is going to guide you towards your test battery. And the test battery will then be put together, and that test battery will specifically then look for the competencies that you're looking for. This process is done by the psychologist. It's very, very quick and easy for us because that's what we do every day. But we guide the client, and that would be your benchmark. That's where you're going to start from. Then the candidates are briefed telephonically. They are briefed very thoroughly in various ways. So not just via email, but also telephonically, and also when they receive their assessment link, there will be thorough instructions so that they can simulate that assessment part at their home or wherever it is that they are, so that they get the benefit of being tested in a very professional and competent manner. So we take this step number 3 very, very serious. We make sure that everyone has got the equipment that they need, they know exactly how, and that there is the option of going to an office where it is supervised if that is what they need. Then point number 4, this is where we set up the tests or the simulation exercises or whatever it is that we need to prepare the candidate for. The online systems are usually very, very professional and user-friendly. So this part is also very quick and easy. The candidates are then busy with their assessments and we can monitor them. So there's constantly someone on standby to monitor them and be by their side as they're completing it. No one is ever left alone and need to figure something out themselves. So we make sure that they're very well briefed. They know exactly what is expected. They know the pitfalls. They know what will be the outcome if certain things are not being followed. Point number 6 there, then we develop competency or comprehensive competency reports, and this is developed by a psychologist. There are some automated reports out there. There's automated systems available in the world today. They are nice for larger organizations, maybe for larger groups, but my professional opinion would be if you're a smaller or a medium-sized organization, even a large organization up to 2,000 people, it would be better to assess the person by a psychologist and have psychologists interpret it, because you can have the deeper insight into the candidate's report. So we look for competency matches, but we also look at, does the person fit the team dynamic and the culture? This is very important because I could be a perfect competency fit, but if I come from a very large organization and I want to come and fit into a very small organization, there could be a culture miss. So these are things that can be missed, which is very, very important to take note of. So when we interpret the results, we do look at the deeper issues. This will be one of the biggest benefits that you will have having psychologists work on it directly. And the last point there is then we provide organizational feedback with recommendations. Individual feedback to the candidate can also be given, but we handle that as and when it comes. But the organizational feedback is very important because that is when you integrate your results that you've got with the team, with the managers, so that they can tell you what are their deal breakers, what can they live with and what not. So you'll never assess a person and get an absolute 100% perfect fit. You will get very good candidates, but even your top best candidate may not be suitable for you, for your company right now. It may be candidate number 2, may be a better fit for you than candidate number 1, purely because of other things, maybe fit or the management styles or whatever. So there can be a lot of things that can impact. That's why the feedback session is very, very critical to discuss what it is that you want and what is your deal breakers. What has been your symptoms that you've been experiencing before that you want to avoid this time around? So the conversation is absolutely crucial. All right, just a quick brief on our process. So firstly, all the assessments are valid norms for South Africa. Assessments are registered with the Health Professions Council, and all the staff are registered psychologists or psychometrists that does the assessment. PTES Consulting specifically use South African developed tests. There are thousands of tests available across the world and in South Africa. We use specifically South African developed tests because it bridges all the language and the culture issues that we've got in this country. It gives everyone a fair chance. And because our psychology in South Africa is so far developed because of our past, our assessments are actually superior in the sense that we can apply it internationally because we've got the language and the culture-free assessments. So we are actually miles ahead of other countries. And therefore also we fall back on the South African developed countries. The tests. All right, and then the second part, when we do test administration, so all assessments are conducted online or it can be conducted face-to-face. Simulation exercises or role play exercises can be customized to your company. So a simulation or a role play is not a psychometric assessment. It is like the typical assessment center that I mentioned earlier, which means that you want to combine that. So it's like a real life type of exercise that you want to combine with the personality and the ability. Then the reports are customized, but they are standardized and they are generated by us. So it will be customized for you and your organization, what it is that you want to see, what it is that you want to look at. So it is standardized, but it is customized for you and what it is that you need. Then the last point, the organizational individual feedback. So organizational or individual feedback is given by the psychologist or the psychometrist, and all feedback can be scheduled telephonically via Skype or face-to-face. It depends on where everyone is located. It depends on time factors. But this will be the full cycle of psychometric assessment as it takes place in South Africa. All right, I just want to touch on the Health Professions Council and our background briefly. So mainly we are guided by the Health Professions Council of South Africa, and the Health Professions Council is mandated to protect the public and to guide the profession of psychology. So when we do psychometric assessment, it is still a psychological act. So we still act like we would when you would see a client in a personal capacity. So we treat it very, very sensitively, very professionally, and we make sure that people are at ease and that they understand what is going on. So the first thing that is how it works from our side, when we conduct the psychometric assessment, we inform the test takers about their rights and the purpose of the assessment exercise. We also obtain consent, so there will always be consent, and we will tell them why the assessment is being done. So the purpose will always be very clear. Is it for selection, placement, training, personal development, career guidance? We can also never assess someone for retrenchment purposes or to dismiss them or something like that. So we always prepare people very well upfront about that. You can always be guaranteed that people will be nervous. There's always a sense of nervousness before the assessment is taken, and it's our job to make them feel comfortable in order to get the best result. We don't want to make people anxious or stressed and they don't know what and why, so that is our job. So we treat test takers with respect and in an impartial manner, regardless of their culture, language, gender, race, disability. And confidentiality is a very, very big component of this, and we also inform them of that. They are aware that the recruiting company will see the results or their own line manager or management. So they know who will see the results. The results will not be used for any other purpose or float around. All right, and then we also make sure that the company uses these results in combination with other tools of selection, for example, interviews or reference checks, qualification checks, and things like that. They just make your life much, much easier. And then we also make the feedback available to the candidates, but this is also done after the process where the organization has been completed, after everyone has made their decisions, and the feedback will also be very user-friendly for personal development purposes. So we don't give the same feedback like we did to the company, to the candidate. For the candidate, it will be based on personal development, and it will be a growth report. It's not going to be a technical, harsh, competency-based report. All right, and then just lastly, I want to touch on the rights and the responsibilities of the test taker. So they have the right to be informed. And also we teach them what is their responsibility in this process, because they are also going to take responsibility while they're completing it, when they're completing it. Treat it with courtesy, respect, and an impartial manner. Be assessed on appropriate tests. All our tests is registered with the Health Professions Council. There's no, although we call some of the test questionnaires or assessments, they are all psychometric tests, but we refer to them as questionnaires. and we don't do any form of surveys that's not validated or anything like that. They are informed of the purpose and the nature of the assessment. They also know whether they can refuse to be assessed and what the consequences of refusal may be. It has happened before that people feel that they don't want to be assessed, but we inform them about the process. But people do have the right to not do that. We've never had problems with recruitment and selection. Usually people work together with us very, very well. We explain the confidentiality of the results, and people do have the right to get the feedback. So we do make that possible for them. All right. I want to quickly just talk about the assessment methodology. So I want to sketch to you the bigger picture of what it is that psychometric assessment or organizational development specialists do. So firstly, we can do assessment for recruitment and selection purposes. That's probably the main reason people do assessment. The second one is assessment of current staff for skills auditing purposes or personal development purposes. So you've got a combination of all of that. Depending on which one you do, your process will be slightly different, but the core principles will stay the same. So I want to sketch this bigger picture to you and to show you what would a typical battery look like. What would be the approach? Because we've referred to cognitive assessment and personality assessment, but what else do we want to see? So in this approach, a typical solid, very good battery for any organization would be looking at the integrity of a candidate, the cognitive part of a candidate, leadership of that candidate, the leadership styles, and then lastly, the personality overview. So the personality may not always give you the leadership or the integrity. You can zoom deeper into any of these aspects. The cognitive assessment that we're currently using in South Africa is a brilliant assessment that's based on and can identify the work levels a person is supposed to work on. So this is quite an advanced test. So we're not just looking at reasoning ability, for example, verbal reasoning, numerical reasoning, or abstract reasoning. We can see all of those components together with the work level that the person is supposed to be on. In one of the next slides, I'm going to explain the work levels to you because this could be an answer to many of the problems that you have in your organization. It's a very simple model. It's based on Elliott Jark's stratified systems model. Big words, but it's a very simple, very effective model. And I'm going to explain it to you a little bit more detail now. The nice thing also about this particular assessment is it can also look at future untapped learning potential. Your normal reasoning test can't see it. So this test is look at the current level of reasoning with my future learning potential that no one can see. You cannot see future untapped learning potential in an interview. You can see it on specific tests. And together with this, you can see the work level that the person is supposed to work on. So I'm going to tell you about the work level in a little bit more detail just now. The integrity questionnaire is also developed in South Africa, and this one will look into the deeper ethical issues. Literally, it will see honesty, truthfulness. Will the person violate policies and procedure? Literally, attitude towards people and the company, disruptive behavioral type of styles. So this integrity questionnaire specifically, I know in certain areas of government, they have started to integrate it. It's not fully there yet. There's a lot of conversations about it still at this stage, but this particular test could be a solution to many, many, many problems. So brilliant assessment. The cognitive we touched on just now. I want to talk to you about the personality assessment. I'm going to show you an example of this particular personality as well. This one is very technical, and it breaks down different constructs of a person's personality into chunks with more detail about, for example, let me take time management. So time management as a construct is broken up into my perception of time, my cultural orientation towards time, my punctuality, but then separately from that, how do I optimally and efficiently use my time during the day? So all of the personality issues are broken up into clusters, which makes up the person's actions. So right at the end, I'm going to run through an example of this one. You can see everything. You can see empathy. You can see the stress management. And I think the most important aspect, something that I didn't mention just now, on the integrity and this personality, as well as the leadership assessment, we have built-in lie detectors. So there are three things that we look at when we want to assess. So firstly, we want to look at whether the person lied blatantly, that they blatantly lie, or that they just make themselves look good, or that they understand what they were doing. So if someone makes themselves look good, like in an interview, we don't want to hold it against them. We want to interpret with caution, but there's a difference between am I trying to make myself look good, or am I blatantly lying? So I think that is the number one benefit for me from some of these South African developed tests, is you can firstly see, did the person lie? We start with that and then we move on. And a lot of the international tests that we see, you get a vague indication that the person made themselves look good, but you cannot say specifically they lied, and you can also not see on what. So it's very vague. It's a problem on psychometric assessments. But on these particular South African ones, it's built into the questionnaire. So I just think that is a big answer to a lot of our problems that we've got. All right, I want to move on to the stratified systems model. I told you that the cognitive assessment can measure work levels. So I briefly want to touch on this thing. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's important for you to know that you have this in your organization already. So if you look at this graph, it looks very complex, but it's actually extremely simple. So right at the bottom, you'll see that it's got level 1, then it's got level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5. So this is what the stratified systems model is based on. So should you, on this particular test, it's based on a score of 1 to 5. If you conduct the assessment and you obtain a score of 1 out of 5, it means that where you are currently cognitively is on a very, very entry level into the organization. So this is someone who can see a problem, but they cannot solve it. This is usually there is a question of literacy issues there. So you would know that there's going to be literacy problems. There will be performance problems. You need to know what this person can do before giving them more responsibility. The nice thing, of course, is you can see where they are at, and do they have learning potential to take them to the next level? Some may show learning potential, others may not. But this is the benefit for you, because this is what you're going to see. If you score a 2 out of 5, it means you're on very technical operational level. If you score a score of 3 out of 5, it means that you are on supervisory middle management level. If you score a score of 4 out of 5, it means you're on an executive level, and a score of 5 out of 5 means you are very, very senior exec. So scores of 4s and 5s, very, very intelligent, difficult to obtain. So don't think everyone's going to cluster around here or aim for that. But if you assess a middle management level position, or a supervisory or a specialist type of role, you at least want to see a score of 3. So in your current company where you are at the moment, if you score someone, if someone is in a middle management level position and they score a 2, that will already tell you what type of problems you have at the moment. So this is where, when you recruit, you want to see, if you are appointing an executive, you need to at least get a score of 4 or a 3 to be able to go to 4. Or if you have a specialist, you want to get a score of 3 around there. But of course, you want to integrate this with other stuff, other information such as the personality. If anyone has got any questions on this model, please let me know. It's very, very simple, and it can save your organization. I just had a quick look at the questions. I'm going to answer your questions just now. They look very good. All right. So, and also keep your eye out on the emails from HR Talk, because there will be another webinar purely based on this stratified model and a skills audit in your organization. It doesn't have to be a complex, big thing. It can be a simple exercise where you can just see, where are my people at? Are they where they're supposed to be? Because the reasoning levels can save your organization. All right, then I just want to quickly run through the different types of test batteries. We've made it simple, and we only put batteries together for 3 levels. Of course, this can be changed, customized, whatever, but to keep it simple, this is, for example, a test battery for an entry graduate level employee. So here we can do anything from a security assessment for security staff, or a driver's assessment for drivers, or differential aptitude for just your entry-level employees. All right, so this would be your very lower level employees. This will be your learnerships, your graduates, your very entry level into the organization. The second test battery is for middle management level, your specialist level employees. So here we have quite a standard battery, but you can adjust, you can add assessment. So here we would do that cognitive assessment that I mentioned, the COPAS, and the personality at work, the POR. And here you can include something like an emotional intelligence or a managerial orientation or anything additionally, even an integrity. But then you've got your senior executive level assessment. So now you get to a very much more senior, important level. So this is combined with your cognitive assessment. Now you want to look into the leadership styles. You want to break it up into emotional intelligence, your derailing types of behaviors, a general competency profile, but also very importantly, your integrity profile. So this is a much more fleshed out assessment. Of course, this is the best one. This is the really good one, but this is only for senior exec. You do not have to do this on your middle specialist level assessments. It would be overkill. All right. I just wanted to have a quick look at the questions again. All right. Before I look at the questions, I'm going to quickly show you what just an example of an assessment, what it looks like. All right. So firstly, I wanted to touch on the monitor scale. So as you can see here, we firstly, when someone completed the assessment, want to look at the lie detector. So in this case, I just took a snapshot of a lie detector so that you can see the lie factor is on a scale from 1 to 10. So this person got an overall of 8, which is very good, 7 for the lie detector, and a consistency factor of 9, which means that they understood the questions. The lie detector, the 7 for us is acceptable. We don't worry too much about a 7 or an 8 is fine. Once you go to 6, but a 5, it becomes problematic. Depending on the type of role, you want to add more importance to the lie detector. So very senior exec, you don't want to take any chances. Financial positions, but HR position, maybe any other positions, you can be lenient with a 6 or a 7, depending on how the other results looked. But also I want to show you this is an example of the raw data for a personality profile. So here you can see, for example, how important work is for this individual is broken up into how work-focused or centered they are, continuous self and career development, pride and loyalty to work. And then you've got the time factor that I mentioned earlier. Here you've got time perception, according to my culture or my orientation. Timekeeping is my punctuality, and then time utilization is how optimal and effective is my time use. So the whole report looks like this. So it's very, very technical and in-depth, but we will give you a picture of how to integrate this, because you want to look at things in combination. You never want to look at one score in isolation. That would be very dangerous. You could miss out on a very good candidate if you look at things in isolation. Here are some more scores. Here we look at, for example, the reliability, accountability, self-confidence, self-assuredness, the energy and drive that the individual would work with. Here's the thinking styles. We look at analytical and logical reasoning, creativity, willingness to make decisions, proactivity, and the likelihood of implementing decisions. And here it continues towards the interpersonal relationships, the competitiveness, influencing others, the whole group dependence, how am I in society? And then the last one here is empathetic, sympathetic, care and concern for people. Here on this page is the one where we can actually put or identify possible narcissistic or psychopathic traits. Now, firstly, we're not allowed to diagnose or discriminate on to people who's got maybe depression or a personality disorder or things like that. But what we can tell you is how this person will fit in with your culture. We can tell you if we see something that's maybe too confrontational, not enough empathy, and maybe extremely pessimistic or mistrusting. The cluster, I cannot tell you what is the issue with a person. I can just tell you, this is what you will see, and this is what will come out. Think about how it will affect the rest of your team. So that is why this is very, very, very important to have a look at. Then I want to also show you the cognitive assessment. So we can pick up whether the candidate rushed, whether they worked fast and accurately, or whether they worked fast and not accurately, or did they work slowly but accurately. So there's a whole bunch of things that we can actually deduce from this report, which is really, really brilliant. Other assessments, you can't really see that. And this is what your report would look like. So firstly, you will see the current mental ability. So the current mental ability is literally what you will see right now here today. So also very important to note that this is on a scale from 1 to 10. You will receive training on how to look at the scores when we give it to you. So we won't give you raw scores, but we will give you an indication of whether the person was in a moderate degree. So this 5, for example, would mean on a scale from 1 to 10, this person is very moderate. If I compare them with people like themselves, they're quite similar. So it's very normal. It's good. It's on a good level. Yeah. Secondly, you can see the learning potential. And the third one there is the combination between the current thinking and the learning potential, actually achieving my untapped learning potential. Then we have all the broken up scores here: analytical thinking, numerical thinking, original thinking, spatial relations, and most importantly, attention to detail. Then right at the bottom, this is the one that we've been talking a lot about, the stratified systems scoring, where this is the work level. So this candidate on a scale from 1 to 5 got a 4, which means that he can work with the complexity of work on executive level. So this is an excellent candidate. And the learning potential is also on a 4. It just means that the person is already so high that the learning potential is on the same level, but it's because they are already so extremely high. And then the last score there means this is the way that they completed the whole assessment. So that 6 is that is the accuracy with which they will probably work at work in general, and that was the accuracy that they completed the whole assessment with. So the 6 out of 10 is also a very good score. All right, I want to quickly jump to the questions. All right, so the first question here is, are we legally required to provide psychometric results and feedback to the candidate? So the candidate does have a right to receive their results. So the policy that we follow, if the candidate is not, say, appointed at the company where they were tested for, so it's an individual who they're outside of that company, they just want feedback, we will customize a report for them, and we will make sure that we give them, so it's a very personally developed or a report that focuses on personal development. So it's not very technical, it's very user-friendly, but we also give them telephonic feedback. So it's a very uplifting report that will focus on the development of themselves, but at least that they can get an idea of how they performed and what happened. So we do that separately, but we only do that way after the client's recruitment process has been finished. And the client doesn't have to worry because we don't give them the same report. We don't give a recommendation and a competency match of why we didn't that would be very harsh, and I think it would be very unreasonable, because the client has got their own organization with their positions, with their own needs that the candidate at that point may not understand. So whether they were not a good fit, they may not understand at that point. And I think also the client has got their processes that they need to complete and to finish. So we will take that burden from you and develop a personal development report for that person, but handle it outside from the process from you. And we make sure that they understand what is going on. When you have employed this person and they're inside your company now and they do want feedback, we can also facilitate the process for you. We also, if it's too technical, we do take out some of the very technical jargon that would be in there, and we make it a little bit more user-friendly. But it's always actually good to give the candidate that did get the position the feedback. I think it's brilliant, because then they have it for themselves. They know, a little bit more about themselves, the position, and all of that. So, but legally, they do have a right to get the results. Then another question: would you recommend an integrity assessment for all potential employees? And how does this tie in the South African culture and norms? I would really recommend it, because you are allowed to build a culture of integrity. So integrity combined with your personality, combined with your cognitive, is a fantastic test battery. For senior executive people, all you do is you add maybe a leadership or managerial type of assessment. So now you've got all of that, but for your specialist or middle management type of roles, I would do a personality, integrity, and a cognitive. And because you've got a specific culture in your organization already, you may have a culture of rule-boundedness, helping, empathetic, or it could just be, you follow rules and regulations. Every company could have a different type of culture, but it can all still be high integrity. So, and how it ties in with South African culture and norms, this particular test is developed in South Africa. It's got the South African norms. It addresses the culture as well as the language issues. This is also the assessment where you can see before we interpret, we can see that the person understand the questions, that they understand the language, were there any cultural things that were talked about that they did not understand or get. So we can see that. And then on top of that, we can see that they lie or not. So it's absolutely applicable, and it ties in very, very well. So did anyone else have any other questions? What we can also do is, if any of you want to request any example reports, you are welcome to contact the HR Talk, and they will make contact with me, and we will send you information on integrated reports. But the simple integrated report that you will find at the end of an assessment series, so that you can also see what it will look like after we take all the raw data and integrate it so that it's user-friendly and readable and understandable for you with a competency match. So we can always send you some example reports of that. And other than that, if you want to know more about the purposes of assessment, what it is that you're going to use it for in your organization, also please let us know. And does no one have any other questions for us? I think the most important for you to know is that we will have another 2 webinars on the competency-based interview, like how you can develop your own. We will teach you how to do that. And there will be another webinar that's going to look at skills audits, where we touch on this, on the stratified systems model, how you can fit everyone into the stratified systems model, and how you can build on your talent and on their career development and their future. And this would be typically your succession planning. So let me see. Okay, there was another question here. So the costs for assessments, to make it simple, we've broken it up into 3 areas. the entry level area, the costing that will vary between 2,000 and maybe 4,000 Rand, but it's going to depend on what it is that you do. There are some of the entry level assessments where you only have to do one screening. And it depends on how many people you do, but it's the entry level will start on that. Then there's the second level is the middle management specialist level. That will vary between about 5,500 and 7,500. So within that bracket, you don't have to take the biggest battery. You can take, if your budget is limited, you can take the lowest test battery that will start by 5,500 Rand. But if you want a very good battery on that level, it will go up to about 7,500. And then your executive test batteries, that also varies between 8,500 and up to 13,000 Rand. But then you have quite the complex tests incorporated in there. So for most recruitment sessions, the test battery on middle management and specialist level will be probably the most suitable. But if you have senior executive or financial positions, rather look at the executive level test batteries, because that's where you really want to see things. That's very, very important. So the cost, another question here is the cost of the integrity assessment alone. So if you only do the integrity assessment, you're looking at about 3,000 Rand, between 2,500 and 3,000 Rand per person, but it depends on what else you're going to do with it. But that will be your range for one assessment. All right, any other questions that you've got? Let me just have a look. Okay. Yeah. And just to touch on it, I honestly think at this stage in the workplace, I don't think that anyone should recruit without some form of assessment. I think it's just gotten to the stage now that we cannot afford it otherwise. And then, are there any discounts for bulk integrity assessments, or rather corporate? Yes, for bulk integrity assessments or even any other type of assessments, we can definitely discuss that. Okay, fantastic. There's another question here. What sorts of tests would one use for succession planning? So I would actually still fall back on that cognitive assessment with the stratified model, together with a personality. You can incorporate something else if you want to, but those two will be your basics, because succession planning, you want to see whether the person is on the right work level and do they have potential to go to the next work level. So that cognitive is extremely important for that. So you would look at your middle level assessment for succession planning. You can also use that same battery for personal development, career guidance, and you can incorporate it into one succession planning exercise. You don't have to test all over the place for everything. You do one assessment and you can apply it to a whole bunch of things. So never think you have to test and test all over again. You can test and use it for various purposes. If you want to move people around, forward or laterally. Okay, and then there's another question. Do you administer emotional intelligence assessment? Absolutely. So we've got different ones. There's the typical EQI that I think everyone is familiar with, but then the personality assessment that I've been referring to has got an emotional intelligence component built into it that looks at the whole emotional intelligence profile. So you can decide what you want. Do you want to see personality together with the EQ, or do you want to see only EQ for maybe coaching purposes or whatever? But we do have the emotional intelligence assessment. Right. The cost of a personality and an EQ. So the costing for only one assessment will start from about 3,000 Rand. And depending if you want to combine it with something else, but the starting cost roughly about 3,000 Rand for personality and EQ. All right, any other questions? All right, but please feel free to speak to HR Talk if you want more information, and if you want some example reports, we can gladly send you that. All right. I think we're finished from our side. Yeah, and thank you everyone for listening and for your contribution. It's highly appreciated. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you everyone.